It's been 5 years since mass popular uprisings in Tunisia and Egypt and other parts of the Middle East initiated a period of political turmoil throughout the region. On January 25th, 2011, mass protests broke out in Cairo and in other cities around Egypt, calling for an end to the 30-year dictatorship of President Mubarak. 18 days later, they achieved that goal and President Mubarak stepped down. Since then, everything is pretty much worse in Egypt than it was 5 years ago in every regard, and not least in terms of human rights and democracy. We have mass arrests of political prisoners, we have disappearances, we have torture, we have unfair trials. Human rights violations are proceeding at a scale which hasn't really been seen in Egypt's modern history. So it's been a disaster in terms of human rights. The United States finds itself with a contradictory strategy in terms of the Middle East. And I think it's a good moment, 5 years on, for some reflection. Initially, the Obama administration came out in strong support of the democratic uprising in Egypt and in other parts of the Arab world. However, 2 years later, in 2013, President Obama said no, these were not going to be the priorities of US policy in the Middle East. We're going to go back to doing deals with authoritarian governments to protect our national interest. He officially and specifically downgraded respect for human rights as priorities within US foreign policy. Now, at the same time, the administration has been, particularly in the last year, in 2015, putting forward a new multilateral initiative on countering violent extremism. And it has rightly stressed that promoting protection for human rights, advancing human rights, are an essential part of countering violent extremism. And if you try to separate counter-terrorism away from promoting human rights, then you end up having a counterproductive, contradictory policy, where you are in fact claiming to counter terrorism, but in fact by not upholding respect for human rights, you are undermining efforts to combat terrorism. It has become really the greatest foreign policy challenge facing the Obama administration, and its response to the challenges of the popular uprisings will really define the legacy of the administration. For more information, visit humanrightsfirst.org.